Chapter 38-37. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Sisishio, Shio, more people ran over. For example, Tan Meng, Jerinchio, the three beauties on the beauty ranking were all here. They were all very concerned about this matter. In their eyes, although Ling Han was not qualified to be their son-in-law, he was still a rare talent. They wanted to recruit him, and this was a good opportunity. Ling Han would definitely not be able to solve this problem. If he settled it for Ling Han, the other party would owe him a huge favor. The rest would be easy. Of course, Xue Bingyuan would not admit it in front of everyone. He just waved his sleeve and said, "Nonsense." Ling Han smiled and threw Xue Zhon to the ground. Then, he patted Xue Hai's head and said, "Come, as the person involved, the instigator, tell me the whole story." "You're talking nonsense." Xue Hai would definitely not admit it and immediately shouted. Under such circumstances, would Ling Han still dare to extort a confession? "Ah!" He suddenly screamed. One of his hands had been broken by Ling Han. This guy was really daring. Hiss, no wonder this guy had been staring at his face and slapping it. Had he already anticipated this scene at that time? Ling Han did not only break his arm, but also started to crush his finger bones inch by inch. The fingers were connected to the heart. How painful was this? Xue Hai screamed again and again, tears flowing down his face. "Stop!" Xue Bingyuan shouted angrily. However, he realized that Ling Han was full of murderous intent. He did not dare to act rashly. In this state, Ling Han would really kill someone. He could not force him into a corner. He had an idea and told Xue Hai through the connection device to temporarily let him go and admit it. In any case, he could say that it was Ling Han who forced him to confess. Xue Hai could not hold on anymore. Now that his uncle had let him go, he naturally told everything in detail. Many people did not know the whole story. After hearing it, they were all furious. If a sect did not even have basic rules, how could people cultivate in peace? This is too much. "And you?" Ling Han pointed at Xue Zhon. Xue Zhon didn't want to suffer anymore. He also wanted to confess and be lenient. However, Ling Han didn't care about the consequences. He first broke most of Xue Zhon's bones before he could speak. Everyone looked at Ling Han and broke out in cold sweat. This fellow was vengeful and decisive. He must not be provoked in the future. Even Tan Meng and the other two women's beautiful eyes rippled. Could they control such a man? Ling Han smiled. "All right, since you've confessed and admitted your mistakes, I'll let you go. I'll deal with you according to the sect's rules." As soon as he finished speaking, his hands shook. Bang! Bang! The Xue brothers were tossed out by him, and they descended on the ground extremely far away. Hey! Everyone was stunned. What was going on? Without a hostage, how could you threaten a life dance stage expert? You were so impressive just now, but if a life core realm expert were to make a move, wouldn't you follow in the footsteps of the Xue brothers? To be confused in the head, Xue Bingyuan laughed, but his voice was cold and filled with anger. "Brat, you really have gut. Uncle, kill him, kill him." Xue Hai clamored at the side. He was trampled on by Xue Bingyuan and didn't dare to speak before, for fear of angering Ling Han. But now that he had escaped from the tiger's mouth, and with his uncle around, he naturally had no inhibitions. Although Xue Zhon didn't say anything, his eyes were filled with hatred. Naturally, he hoped that Ling Han would be taught a lesson by Xue Bingyuan, and it would be best if he was killed. Ling Han smiled. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Because he was confident, Xue Bingyuan was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he said indifferently, "Shouldn't you be afraid of me?" "Why should I be afraid?" Ling Han shook his head. "I'm a disciple of a sacred ground." "Who are you?" "You're just a Dao child. You want me to be afraid of you? Haha, do you still care about the sacred ground?" Xue Bingyuan was instantly stifled. This stab hurt him. Even if he was now at the life core realm and could look down on all the disciples in this batch, when it came to status, how could a mere Dao child be put on the stage? His expression was twisted, and his eyes were spitting fire. "I'm at the life core realm. You dare to disrespect a strong cultivator? This is looking down on the order of martial art," he said coldly. He couldn't bear it anymore and stepped forward, wanting to take Ling Han down. However, just as he took a step forward, he saw that the ground around him was actually lit up with lines, forming an intricate pattern. Not good, this is a formation, he shouted in his heart. Suddenly, he understood why Ling Han lured him here and why he suddenly stopped. So it was to lure him into a formation. But a mere formation made by a casting cauldron, how could it trap him? If I were you, from now on, I wouldn't move a muscle, Ling Han said slowly. Shui Bingyuan was unwilling to listen, and his foot had already landed. A mere casting cauldron, in my eyes, is no different from an ant. Bang! Instantly, the brilliance of the formation pattern flashed chaotically and shot towards Shui Bingyuan. Shui Bingyuan made a move to shatter the brilliance, but he suddenly realized that the attack power of the brilliance was not only terrifying, but also massive and endless. Even if it was him, he would only be tired of defending. He turned pale with fright. If this carried on, he would eventually collapse. It was truly unbelievable that a cast tripod realm could actually set up a life core class formation. He hurriedly broke through, wanting to kill his way out of the array formation. However, this action of his incited an even more intense backlash from the array formation. More and more brilliance surged out and shot towards him. From the outside, these lights actually formed the shape of a vase. This is the three-phase treasure bottle array. Someone recognized it. What? An array that can slaughter the life core? It can't be, everyone exclaimed in shock, and then came to a sudden realization. No wonder Ling Han was so calm and composed. So everything was under his control. They couldn't help but sigh. Even a life core realm was toyed around by Ling Han. How awesome. Tan Meng and the other two beauties' eyes lit up, and they felt that it was time to re-evaluate Ling Han's value. He was not only a great alchemist, but he also had outstanding talent in the array Dao. Such a talent was worthy of being roped in with the highest treatment. He could even be a candidate for a future husband. At this moment, the ones with the worst expressions were naturally the Shui Hai and Shui Zhon brothers. Their uncle, whom they relied on as a great wall, was actually taken care of by Ling Han just like that. It was like a dream. They looked at Ling Han and felt that this young man was basically a monster. The life core was actually suppressed by the cast cauldron. Ah! Shui Bingyuan screamed. The three-phase treasure bottle array could refine life core realm martial artists, and although he was at the late stage of the life core, he was just a Dao child. His talent in martial art naturally couldn't be that outstanding. His strength could only be considered average, and he had no way to break out of the array. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 38-38. A Beautiful Romance. BQG 6. Cece hearing Shui Bingyuan's screams grow louder and louder, everyone's hair stood on end. Could it be that Ling Han wanted to refine Shui Bingyuan alive? Hiss, no one would believe such a thing. A cast cauldron had not only defeated a life core cultivator, but had also counterattacked. Wasn't this a fantasy? Moreover, there was a sect master level expert behind Shui Bingyuan. Weren't you afraid of Liu Sanjuan's thunderous rage? Brat, stop. Stop. Shui Bingyuan screamed. He really couldn't hold on any longer. If he continued to stubbornly resist, he would really be refined alive. Ling Han, however, acted as if he hadn't heard anything. His family and friends were his reverse scale, so once someone provoked him, he would definitely fiercely retaliate. He would let everyone know that this was an uncrossable bottom line. Shui Bingyuan hadn't expected Ling Han to be so ruthless. He really wanted to put himself in a dead end. He had no choice but to ask Liu Sanjun for help. Originally, he didn't want to trouble Liu Sanjun. How could a master wipe the mess of a servant? Moreover, he, a grand life core cultivator, couldn't even deal with a cast cauldron. With Liu Sanjuan's fiery temper, would she still allow him to follow her in the future? Thus, he had always wanted to rely on his own strength to escape. Now that he couldn't force his way out and begging for mercy was useless, he could only use his final move. Only by being alive would there be hope. If he died, everything would be for naught. Ling Han sneered. He began to circle around the formation. Although he seemed very casual, with every step he took, strands of psychokinesis would enter the ground to draw upon the power of heaven and earth. With his current strength, it was naturally impossible for him to move to the life core formation. However, the formation had already been formed. If he only went to add fuel to the fire, it would naturally be 100 times easier. Ah! Xue Bingyuan's screams suddenly became louder and more mournful. He felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. More importantly, Liu Sanjun was currently comprehending and searching for an opportunity to break through to the supremacy realm. Once he entered a deep meditative state, how could he be awakened by a light call from him? Ancestor! Ancestor! Save me! He desperately called for help through the connecting device, but very quickly, the device fell with a bang. It had been destroyed by the formation's refinement. He was in despair. The terrifying energy was currently refining him, making him one with heaven and earth. Wang. Right at this moment, a terrifying aura circulated. Everyone felt their vision blur, and then a white-haired, white-bearded, white-haired old man with a square face appeared on the battlefield. He exuded boundless might. Liu Sanjun, sect master level almighty. He made a move. With just a grab, the precious bottle that was actually formed from energy shattered with a loud rumble. How could a life core realm great formation compare to a sect master level attack? However, it was already too late. Within the array, Xue Bingyuan had already turned into a pile of bones. Even so, Liu Sanjun could still easily capture the fragments of consciousness emitted by this corpse. It was a lingering resentment. Who dares to kill this old man's Dao child? Liu Sanjun asked coldly. The surrounding temperature immediately plummeted. So what if they were cast cauldrons? They all shivered and wanted to wrap their arms around themselves. Ice shards continued to fall from the sky. This was a sect master level powerhouse. With a single thought, they could affect heaven and earth, and with a single anger, they could cause rivers of blood. Ancestor. Xue Zhon scrambled over. Xue Bingyuan was this junior's uncle. I am Xue Zhon. My uncle was killed by that despicable brat. He pointed at Ling Han, his eyes filled with resentment, as well as a sliver of light. Xue Bingyuan had died at the hands of Ling Han. Not only could he borrow Liu Sanjuan's strength to kill Ling Han, but if he performed well, he could even use Liu Sanjun as a connection. Thus, this was an opportunity. Xue Hai was not stupid. He also ran over and knelt on the ground, pouring out Ling Han's crimes. From the mouths of these two brothers, everything was naturally Ling Han's fault. He had bullied them just because he was stronger. And after they had asked for Xue Bingyuan's help, they had been killed by Ling Han's formation. This was really twisting the truth and spouting nonsense. However, Liu Sanjuan's expression became more and more unsightly. Even if he only had to believe a little, with Xue Bingyuan's corpse lying in front of him, it was enough to make him so angry that he wanted to kill someone. How dare you? Liu Sanjun looked at Ling Han coldly. Even if your talent is peerless, you will only become a great threat in the future if you do evil. Let this old man get rid of you. He stretched out his hand. Boom, endless energy gathered, turning into a huge hand that slapped towards Ling Han. This was the attack of a sect master level powerhouse. Even if Ling Han was 100 times more monstrous, it would be useless. He could not match it at all unless he took out the heavenly flame of the primal chaos extreme thunder tower. However, Ling Han did not do so. This was because a figure shot out and blocked this attack in time. Yang Dong, what is the meaning of this? Liu Sanjun asked coldly. The person who blocked him was Yang Dong. Yang Dong chuckled. This old man is here to mediate a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Liu Sanjun sneered. My Dao child died here. Could my eyes be playing tricks on me? Yang Dong still had a smile on his face, but in his heart, he was blaming Ling Han for going overboard and actually killing someone. But on the other hand, he was also full of praise for Ling Han. How many people in history were able to forge the life-killing elixir? He was just a Dao child and not an official disciple. In Yang Dong's opinion, this wasn't a problem at all. The problem now was Liu Sanjuan's face. As long as Liu Sanjuan's face was acceptable, this matter was actually easy to settle. Ling Han, come and apologize to Elder Liu. He beckoned to Ling Han. Yes. Ling Han had a respectful expression and walked to Yang Dong's side with large strides. He then cupped his hands towards Liu Sanjun and said, "This junior made a mistake and mistakenly killed elder Liu's Dao child. I am willing to compensate." "Compensate? Compensate your sister." Liu Sanjun was almost angered to death. He was a cult master level expert and would care about the compensation of a puny caste tripod realm martial artist. What could he compensate? Even if he had to pay with his life, he wouldn't care. Well, was this an apology or a mockery? Good, 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 he said in a stern tone and stared at Yang Dong. You must interfere. Yang Dong was now in a difficult position, but he was extremely tactful and said, "This is the matter of the sacred ground, and we are all disciples of the sacred ground. Don't be impulsive." Liu Sanjun pretended not to hear and pointed to Shuizhan. "All right, in a month's time, this old man will guide this person and then have a life-and-death battle with that evil brat." Life-and-death battle? That would be a fight to the death. Liu Sanjun looked at Shuizhan. "Do you dare?" Shuizhan clenched his teeth and said, "I dare." This was obviously an opportunity for Liu Sanjun to use extraordinary means to increase his strength crazily in a month. This was a great opportunity. Of course, it would definitely be extremely painful. To have a drastic change in his strength in a month was not just a joke. Liu Sanjun looked at Ling Han again. "Do you dare?" Yang Dong gave a look to Ling Han, indicating for Ling Han not to agree. Since Shui Bingyuan wasn't a disciple of the sacred ground, it didn't matter if he died. "All right," Ling Han said indifferently. "Reading on the phone is more refreshing." Chapter 3840. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han didn't fight back. The best way to deal with this kind of person was to beat him up. Once he was beaten down, he would be convinced. 5 days, 10 days, half a month. Time passed quietly, and the 1-month deadline was getting closer and closer. No one knew how powerful Shuizhan was now, because he had been staying at Liu Sanjuan's place. Who dared to break into the residence of a sect master? However, according to Lin Qi, he had been invited by Liu Sanjun to spar with Shuizhan. When the news came out, everyone was curious. They all asked Lin Qi what level Shuizhan's strength had reached. Lin Qi didn't say it directly. He just said that Ling Han was doomed. Wasn't that enough? Ling Han didn't care at all. In his imagination, he had already regarded Shuizhan as an 8-cauldron cultivator. So, it wasn't strange for an 8-cauldron cultivator to tie or even defeat Lin Qi. The problem now was that the cave dwellers seemed to have realized that something was secretly eating their celestial medicine, and had already strengthened their defenses. When Ling Han had gone to steal the medicine yesterday, he had almost been discovered, because shockingly, there was an elite of the true self tier. If he wanted to steal medicine again, it would be more difficult. It couldn't be helped. Who asked Ling Han to steal every day? This would definitely arouse suspicion. Fortunately, Ling Han's cultivation was almost close to the peak of the 4-cauldron level. He didn't steal any more medicine. Instead, he focused on cultivating. Even if it wasn't half an hour before sunrise, he was still cultivating. Although the efficiency was 100 times lower, it was still meat. In the current situation, he had to seize every second. Another 7 days later, Ling Han finally reached the peak of the 4-cauldron level. He could break through to the 5-cauldron level. The basic conditions were met, but he still needed an opportunity to break through. How could he break through just because he wanted to? Ling Han went to the star web to fight. He wanted to find inspiration in the battle and take that crucial step. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Ling Han didn't make any progress. It seemed that he could only reach the 4-cauldron level. That was his limit. Of course, Ling Han didn't believe it. He wasn't fighting, but was meditating in seclusion. He emptied his mind, no longer dwelling on the battle that would take place in a few days. Instead, he went through his recent battles over and over again. Finally, he recalled the battles of the monolith ancestor king in his mind. Vast scenes appeared in his sea of consciousness on a magnificent scale. Suddenly, he was inspired. Ling Han drank a mouthful of earth spirit stone milk, sat cross-legged, and attempted to break through the 5 cauldrons. He also ate a cauldron heart pill. In his sea of consciousness, the image of an immortal cauldron appeared. Although it was fake, it could be used as a reference to construct his 5th celestial cauldron. Come life essence condensed, turning into the core of the 5th immortal cauldron. Then, with this as the foundation, it continuously strengthened. 2 days later, the breakthrough was complete. In Ling Han's sea of consciousness, the 5th cauldron had already been completed. It gently rose and fell, immortal energy scattering down. However, it only had a cauldron body, no cauldron feet. Although I'm only at the early stage of the 5th cauldron, with my battle prowess, defeating 8 cauldrons shouldn't be a problem. Even if I encounter 9 cauldrons, I believe I'll be able to put up a fight. Ling Han was full of confidence. Of course, the more cauldrons one formed, the more talented they were. This meant that such a genius battle prowess would also be stronger. In the entire universe, how many people could cultivate to 9 cauldrons at the same time? Therefore, such people were bound to have heaven-defying battle prowess. Ling Han didn't dare boast that he could beat someone a few levels above him. For example, Shi Yi, Myriad Daos, and Heaven Splitter were all monsters like him. How could it be possible to overcome 2 or 3 levels above them? However, Shuezhon snickered. How could this kind of cultivation, achieved in a short amount of time and relying on the power of others, compare to Shi Yi and Shi Yi? Not to mention Shi Yi, even Wu Qiuan and Yuan Tian were much stronger than him. There were still 3 days until the life and death battle. Ling Han came out of seclusion and began to wander around the sacred land, appearing extremely calm. In this sacred land, there could be secret techniques hidden everywhere. Therefore, he had just broken through, and it was not suitable for him to advance further. He needed to relax, which was perfect for treasure hunting. His luck started to improve. In just 3 short days, he actually obtained quite a few immortal techniques from the cracks in the rocks, the fish in the lake, and the eruption pattern of the volcano. Unfortunately, their levels weren't too high. Now, he really didn't care too much about the secret techniques of the sect master level. Then, in another night, it would be the day of the battle between Ling Han and Shuezhon. The sun rose, and Ling Han cultivated for half an hour as usual. This was something that couldn't be changed. He packed up and left. At the foot of the mountain, he saw the Empress, Hu Niu, Lin Luo, Wu Qiuan, Yuan Tian, and the others were already waiting for him. Ling Han nodded at them, and then headed towards the place of the battle. This was a huge open space, and there were many people waiting there. The whole sacred land had been reinforced by generations of great elites, so not to mention caste cauldron level, even if great elites of sect master level attacked, the damage they could cause was extremely limited. Therefore, there was no need to deliberately set up a stage for this life and death battle. As expected, Lin Qi and Gan Ping didn't come, as if to tell everyone that they didn't think highly of Ling Han at all and didn't want to waste time. However, Tan Meng and the other 2 beauties all arrived. Seeing Ling Han coming, they all came up to greet him. Senior brother Ling, if you don't have confidence, don't fight, Jerichio was the first to say. Exactly, senior brother Ling is skilled in both alchemy and formations. It's not worthwhile to fight with a crude person, Jiang Gefei echoed. Tan Meng smiled sweetly. I wish senior brother Ling a triumphant return in advance. She had fought with Ling Han, and with her intelligence and wisdom, she naturally understood Ling Han's character very well. If this guy didn't have confidence, how could he agree to fight Shuezhon to the death? Therefore, this guy definitely had a trump card. After all, Elder Yang Dong had stood up for him before. Then, Shuezhon could get Liu Sanjun's help, but Ling Han couldn't. Hu Niu instantly revealed a protective attitude, and looked at the 3 girls with a vigilant gaze. You 3 ugly things, Ling Han is Niu's, don't even think about it. These words were too direct, causing the 3 girls' pretty faces to blush. They were noble ladies on the exceptional beauty ranking, and who knew how many geniuses would break their heads just to see them, but you mistakenly thought that they were here to get close to Ling Han. Ling Han hadn't spoken yet. Xiao, a swift light shot out from one of the mountain peaks, and appeared in the field in a flash. Liu Sanjun had come. He carried a person in his hand, and it was Shuezhon. Let's begin, he said indifferently. It was merely forging a cauldron, and he didn't even bother to take another look, so why waste time? Shuozhan, on the other hand, cracked his neck as if he was stretching his muscles, and then looked at Ling Han with a provocative gaze. Haha, can you block 3 of my moves? He was now bursting with confidence. With Liu Sanjun's help, he condensed 5 celestial cauldrons, making him an elite with 8 cauldrons now. Although after this battle, those 5 celestial cauldrons would disappear, there would still be seeds left behind. First, he set a small goal for himself, such as bookmarking. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3841. BQG6, CC BQG6. CC, what a petty man. Ling Han smiled. Who do you think you are to strut around in front of me? Ha 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 ha. Shuozhan laughed. You're a frog in a well. You haven't reached this level yet, so you have no idea how powerful I am right now. He extended a finger. 1 finger is enough to defeat you. Ling Han put his hands behind his back. You're bragging to the heavens, but don't kneel in a fight. That'll be so embarrassing. Shuozhan's eyes were cold. He really wasn't Ling Han's match when it came to bickering, so it was better to fight directly. He believed in his own strength. He was so powerful that he seemed to be able to compete with a life core realm cultivator. Suppressing a 4-cauldron cultivator would be a piece of cake. Fine, he would beat this kid down first, then slowly humiliate him. Shuozhan made up his mind and walked towards Ling Han. As he walked, he released his cauldron. 1 sip, 2 sips, 3 sips. For sips when he released the 4th cauldron, everyone couldn't help but exclaim. 4 cauldrons. Even in the entire star web, there were only 1,000 people who could cultivate 4 cauldrons. This kind of strength was enough to be in the top 1,000. No matter which sect he went to, he would be qualified to be a daoist. However, it wasn't over yet. Shuozhan released the 5th cauldron. Heavens! Everyone exclaimed. 5 cauldrons. Breaking through the limit was extremely difficult. This still wasn't Shuozhan's limit. He released the 6th cauldron. In fact, he could release all of them at once, but in order to achieve the greatest effect of showing off, he chose to do it one at a time. This was shocking. As expected, everyone exclaimed. 6 cauldrons. Perhaps even Gan Ping and Lin Qi only had this kind of strength. Then, the 7th cauldron appeared. 7 cauldrons. Everyone's scalps went numb. They were speechless. No wonder Gan Ping said Ling Han was dead. 7 cauldrons. That was too terrifying. Do you think this is my limit? Shuozhan roared, and the 8th cauldron appeared. 8 cauldrons, the peak second only to 9 cauldrons. Everyone couldn't help but look at Liu Sanjun. Was this the strength of a sect master? It had only been a month, and he had raised a heaven cauldron to 8 cauldrons. No, Shuozhan has 5 immortal cauldrons. They were forcibly forged by Elder Liu's supreme power. It's impossible for them to last. So that's how it is. Otherwise, it would be too terrifying. Of course. If immortal cauldrons can be forged like this, then what's so strange about 8 or 9 cauldrons? You're right. However, this has left an imprint in Shuozhan's body. In the future, it will be 10 times or even 100 times easier for him to forge a new immortal cauldron. This guy is really lucky. It can be considered a blessing in disguise. Everyone discussed animatedly, and there were always people with good eyesight and profound knowledge who spoke of Shuozhan's current situation. This made many people envious. Perhaps Shuozhan's limit was only 4 cauldrons, but after this incident, this guy's future limit might be 5 cauldrons or even 6 cauldrons. After all, how could it be as simple as a temporary increase in battle prowess to injure a sect master level cultivator so greatly? Right now, Shuozhan was truly in high spirits and extremely pleased with himself. He felt that all the men were envious of him, and all the women were in love with him. This caused his vanity to expand endlessly. Kneel! He shouted loudly at Ling Han. His aura swept out like a raging wave. In the distance, many people felt their legs soften, and they almost knelt down. They couldn't help but be shocked. They were so far away, but they were still affected. This guy's strength was practically heaven-defying. However, Ling Han didn't move at all. Huh. Shuezhan revealed a look of surprise. Why was this guy not affected in the slightest? Kneel. Ling Han also spoke. Boom, a wave of baleful aura shot out. Shuezhan instantly felt his mind go blank, and then a strong chill arose. His legs involuntarily softened, and he knelt down. Peng, this kneel was extremely heavy, and the sound was loud and clear. F***ck, what was going on? Everyone was dumbfounded. Shuezhan was clearly awe-inspiring. With an 8 cauldron cultivation, he might not be invincible in all of the cast cauldrons, but there were very few people who could defeat him. However, in just the blink of an eye, Shuezhan knelt down. How could this not make people's eyeballs pop? However, the beautiful eyes of Tan Meng and the other 2 beauties were shining brightly. What they feared the most was a hothead like Ling Han. Such a person, whether as a subordinate, a partner, or a husband, would be an incredibly troublesome matter. Now, it was proven that Ling Han wasn't arrogant at all, but he really had the strength. This was called self-confidence. Liu Sanjuan's face instantly darkened. He had worked hard for a month, even at the expense of his own vitality, to forcibly raise Shuezhan's cultivation to 8 cauldrons. He had thought that he could trample on Ling Han and save his face. Who would have thought that before they even fought, Shuezhan would first kneel down? Was there even a need to fight? Ah! Shuezhan immediately jumped up, his face flushed. He pointed at Ling Han and said, "You actually dare to use an artifact, despicable and shameless. Otherwise, how could a 4-cauldron cultivator make him lose control of his mind?" When everyone heard this, they all had doubts. Yes, this was a bit unbelievable. Could 4 cauldrons be so strong? Don't embarrass yourself anymore. Why haven't you made your move? But at this moment, Liu Sanjun shouted in a low voice. Whether or not he had used an artifact, how could he not know? It was really shameful. His skills were inferior, and he actually said that the other had used an artifact. His face was even uglier than when he was kneeling on the ground. When they heard Liu Sanjun say this, everyone naturally understood. Ling Han hadn't used an artifact, otherwise Liu Sanjun would definitely have made the first move. Hiss, without using an artifact, Ling Han could actually make 8 cauldrons kneel. This was too terrifying. It wasn't just Tan Meng and the 3 great beauties. Now, every female disciple was looking at Ling Han with eyes full of splendor. They couldn't wait to immediately do him and cook the raw rice into cooked rice. Shuezhan gritted his teeth, and with a loud roar, he charged towards Ling Han. The cultivation of 8 cauldrons was unleashed, and he was as terrifying as a great demon king. Unfortunately, with a glare from Ling Han, Shuezhan knelt down again. This, everyone was speechless. Had he come to fight, or to perform kowtowing? Ah! Shuezhan roared again, leaped up, and charged towards Ling Han. Pa! Kneeling again. Ah! Pa! Ah! Pa! Shuezhan rose up again and again, but he knelt down again and again. This kind of scene played out continuously, and it actually gave people an incomparably comical feeling. Quite a few people were already laughing out loud. What kind of life and death battle was this? It was clearly a monkey show. Shuezhan was already beyond furious. Even if he could show off his invincible might and smash Ling Han into dregs, he would definitely become a laughingstock in the future, and he would be constantly mocked by others. Therefore, his killing intent soared to the heavens. He only had one thought, and that was to tear Ling Han into 1,000 pieces. Cell phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3842. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC Ling Han, do you dare fight me head-on? Shuezhan provoked. He didn't know what method the other party used. Although he was prepared, he still couldn't guard against it. He always knelt down disobediently. This was natural. This was an attack at the level of divine senses. Unless one's willpower was as firm as steel, otherwise, only the descendants of the Buddha race would be able to resist against a cast cauldron level. The 6 words Wisdom King mantra had outstanding defensive effects against spiritual attacks. Ling Han didn't want to continue acting like a monkey. He said indifferently, "Attack." Shuezhan's provocation succeeded, and he couldn't help but sneer. As long as he could unleash the battle prowess of 8 cauldrons, then he would have a crushing advantage against a 4-cauldron cultivator. Die. He rushed over and threw a punch. The battle of life and death prohibited all worldly possessions, but it didn't matter. His fists could crush everything. Ling Han shouted softly, and also shot out a punch. Bam! The 2 fists collided, instantly setting off a raging tide of energy, turning into a mushroom cloud that soared into the sky. However, the ground here was too solid. Even such an attack could only blast open a hole that was not very deep. Amidst the flashes of light, Ling Han and Shui Zhong both stumbled back. What? No one dared to believe their eyes. Previously, when Shui Zhong repeatedly knelt down, everyone guessed that Ling Han had mastered a powerful secret method of telekinesis. But just now, it was a real confrontation of secret forces, and it was obvious who was stronger. But what did they see? The 2 of them were actually evenly matched. How is that possible? An 8-cauldron cultivator was actually unable to crush a 4-cauldron cultivator in terms of strength. Was there still justice in this world? Was there still law? Liu Sanjun couldn't help but look at Ling Han. Originally, he didn't even bother to pay attention to a casting cauldron, but now he was suddenly curious about this young man. Hey! With his sect leader level power, he naturally saw that there were 5 cauldrons in Ling Han's sea of consciousness, and one of them had just been forged. 5-cauldron primary stage. Even though he was 3 cauldrons weaker, he was not at a disadvantage at all. Although Shui Zhong's 5 cauldrons were fake and temporary, in such a short period of time, there was not much difference between using them and using 8 cauldrons. Liu Sanjun looked again, and his expression became serious. What did he see? It was a stone-shaped immortal cauldron. 5 elements immortal cauldron. Apart from the bronze, silver, and gold cauldrons, some geniuses had other tricks up their sleeves. When casting the cauldron, they would integrate some special substances or even the power of their bloodline, causing the cauldron to mutate. Hence, there would be the flame cauldron, the ice cauldron, and so on. The stone cauldron was not strange either. Perhaps Ling Han had the stone attribute innate divine body. But when he took a closer look, he immediately realized that something was wrong. This was no ordinary stone immortal cauldron. It was filled with a supreme aura, as if it was the king of immortal cauldrons. There was actually someone who could forge such an immortal cauldron. Liu Sanjun couldn't help but cherish talents. He almost had no hope of becoming a venerable in this life, but if he could nurture a venerable disciple, the sense of accomplishment wouldn't be any less than becoming a venerable himself. In fact, he felt that Ling Han would not only be a venerable in the future, but he might even become a sage. He didn't dare to think about becoming a martial emperor. Not only did it require talent, but it also required great opportunities and great luck. For example, the 9 Sons sage was known as the strongest sage, but didn't he still lose to ancestral King Ling Tian? How is this possible? Shui Zhong roared, his face filled with disbelief. Nothing is impossible, Ling Han said indifferently. I'll send you on your way in 3 moves. Haha, you really know how to dream. Shui Zhong laughed coldly, his killing intent boiling. This time, he definitely had to kill Ling Han. Otherwise, his strength would quickly disappear like the receding tide, and Ling Han would still be so powerful. Then wouldn't he be bullied miserably by Ling Han in the future? Thus, this was his only chance. Kill. In a battle of life and death, killing was not a crime. He roared loudly, and connected with a high-level energy. His entire body was instantly wrapped in flames, and it was as if he had transformed into a fire god. Die. He pounced out again, activating a powerful celestial technique. As he punched out, the power of his fist transformed into a giant firebird. Its entire body was covered in dense symbols, and it flew towards Ling Han. Ling Han was fearless, and he directly faced the firebird. Peng, his fist punched out, and the firebird directly collapsed. He charged out, activating so close, yet worlds apart under his feet, and he instantly appeared in front of Shui Zhong. The Deluo Heaven Paragon technique was activated, and flames similarly coiled around it. Peng! Shui Zhong was instantly sent flying. He hurriedly climbed up, and just as he was about to attack, he was shocked to find that his body was burning with flames. He hurriedly tried to extinguish the flames, but found that they were extremely stubborn and could not be extinguished. He was greatly shocked, but before he could finish his thought, he saw Ling Han charging over again. It was still the Deluo Heaven Paragon technique. Ling Han's hands turned into palms, fists, and claws, deriving the ultimate technique of the Jin clan. A series of attacks smashed down, and Shuezhon was instantly killed by him. Ling Han sighed inwardly. If he used the 3 moves of the war god, he should be able to finish him off in one blow. Sure enough, the gap between the venerable level paragon technique and the holy technique was still very, very large. But the scalps of the others were numb, and they were completely speechless. An 8 cauldron realm cultivator was killed by Ling Han head-on just like that. Fair and square, without any excuses. Hiss, what kind of terrifying strength was this? Gan Ping, Lin Qi, in front of such strength, even they had to kneel down and sing surrender. The eyes of all the beauties shone brilliantly. Even Tan Meng and the other 2 beauties were no exception. How could such a man not be tempted? Outstanding alchemy skills, shocking formation ability, and now added with this domineering and matchless battle prowess, even the most picky noble girl would have to let go of her reservations. Her love was like a tide, and she could not control herself. Unexpectedly, Liu Sanjun only took a deep look at Ling Han, and actually did not say a word, directly turning around and flying away. Strange. Yang Dong muttered in the crowd. This was not in line with old monster Liu's personality. He was already prepared to make a move lest Liu Sanjun kill Ling Han in a rage out of humiliation, but he did not think that Liu Sanjun would actually directly leave. Ling Han walked back, and everyone immediately swarmed over. No matter if it was men or women, they were all incredibly enthusiastic. Senior brother Ling, they all called him, with a kind of worship that came from the very marrow. Ling Han smiled at them, but did not stay. He squeezed out of the crowd, and returned with the Empress, Hunyo, and the others. The Empress was proud, and did not pay any attention to anyone, while Hunyo turned around, and made a face at Tan Meng and the other 2 girls, meaning that Ling Han was Nyo's, and they could forget about it. However, how could this possibly scare off Tan Meng and the other 2 girls? This is the husband I've been looking for. Not only is he skilled in both alchemy and formations, he is also extremely talented in martial art, and there is hope for him to become a saint in the future, Tan Meng thought. Furthermore, this guy has a glib tongue, so he should know how to flirt. If I'm with him, the rest of my life will definitely not be boring. Jiang Gifei and Jieringqiu had similar thoughts. The 3 girls looked at each other, hostility rising in their hearts. They had not seen the Empress and Hunyo's true appearances, so they did not regard them as opponents at all. They only felt that the 2 in front of them were the greatest enemies. Cell phones were more refreshing to read. Chapter 3844. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han was going to fight with Lin Qi. The news spread to every disciple through the Holy Land's network. In an instant, everyone moved out to watch this fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. It was not a life-and-death battle, so the use of Dharma artifacts was not prohibited. However, the challenger could choose the time and place. Therefore, Ling Han's formation skills had been destroyed. How could he set up a formation in advance? It could be said that Lin Qi was quite smart. On one side was a descendant of the imperial family. Although he was not the most powerful descendant of the Lin family, he had the imperial blood in his body. Wasn't that enough? He was ranked 207th on the star web. That was the best indication of Lin Qi's strength. On the other side was a brilliant star. He came from an ordinary family, but he was very talented in martial art. He was a 4 cauldron, 5 cauldron. The Holy Land later announced that Ling Han's cultivation was 5 cauldron, not 4 cauldron. Even so, it was still a fantasy that he could defeat an 8 cauldron. The battle between the 2 was bound to be very exciting. Early in the morning, the crowd came to the open space and waited for the 2 participants. Not long after, Ling Han and Lin Qi arrived at about the same time. Both of them were exactly on time, not a minute more, not a second less. Lin Chi put his hands behind his back and walked slowly to the center of the field. He had a faint smile on his face, but deep down, he was very angry. He had always been dismissive of Ling Han. Why did he suddenly challenge him this time? It was simple, beautiful. He had always been pursuing Jiang Gefei, while Ganping had his eyes on Tan Meng. This was no secret. However, Jiang Gefei was cold and indifferent towards him, and acted as if she did not see his attentiveness. Yet, she still went to Ling Han's place every day. How could he not be furious? Therefore, he wanted to take this opportunity to humiliate Ling Han and let Jiang Gefei know that he was worthy of her attention. When it came to women, even a descendant of the imperial family like Lin Chi, a genius ranked 207th on the star web, was confused and could not think calmly. Ling Han, come and see how I defeat you, he said calmly, showing his contempt for Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly, and strode forward to greet him. Lin Chi took out a sword that was green in color. It was a replica of the Lin family's imperial weapon and also a standard ritual implement. All the important successors had one. The levels of the ritual implements varied according to their realms. However, one shouldn't look at how this was an imitation artifact. When an emperor clan took action, how could it be ordinary? This jade water sword was one of the best among the current cauldron forging magic tools. Other than the standard magic tools of the emperor clan, all other magic tools would be unable to withstand a single blow from it. Why? Because this jade water sword was forged next to an emperor weapon, it had a trace of an emperor weapon's aura. Just this was enough. Who in the world could resist an imperial weapon? If you don't want to suffer, I'll allow you to surrender, he said calmly. Ling Han laughed heartily and said, I really didn't expect you to be an expert in telling jokes. Lin Chi wasn't infuriated. He wasn't a match for Ganping on the star web, but he believed that he would be able to win in the real world. This was because the star web battle excluded all external factors such as ritual implements and talisman soldiers. This was fair and unfair at the same time. I'm a descendant of the Emperor clan. Why can't I crush you with resources? How long can you be so stubborn? Lin Chi said calmly. In the face of absolute power, you're just a clown. Ling Han shook his head. The more disdainful you sound now, the more face you'll lose when the time comes. That's impossible. Lin Chi was brimming with confidence. He slashed with the jade water sword in his hand, and shua, a flash of sword chi sliced towards Ling Han. It turned into a green ribbon, and there was a frightening brilliance flickering on it. Ling Han opened the starlight screen and took the attack head-on. Peng, the sword chi slashed past, and the starlight screen instantly shattered. However, the power of the sword chi was also exhausted. Ling Han was slightly astonished. The might of this spirit tool was quite strong, actually being able to slash open his screen of starlight with a single strike. However, Lin Chi was even more shocked. He knew the background of the jade water sword, but his opponent took the attack head-on and only broke the protective shield. He wasn't injured, which made his heart tremble. I can't underestimate him, I can't underestimate him. This kid is really a demon. Alarm bells rang loudly in his mind, but his expression was calm. Moreover, he indeed had the right to do so. He had broken through Ling Han's strongest defense with a single strike. The jade water sword was indeed worthy of being a replica of an emperor weapon. Again, Lin Chi waved his sword. Shua, shua, shua. A streak of sword chi slashed over. A green waterfall filled the sky, and a terrifying aura was condensing. This was the aura of the emperor weapon, but it was too thin. With every slash of the sword, this aura would increase. When it reached a certain level, it would eventually crush everything. At least, no one in the cast tripod realm would be a match for it. Therefore, the jade water sword was the strongest 2-star ritual implement. Apart from the replica of the emperor weapon, there was no match for it. Ling Han activated his ocular sorcery and jumped in the sword chi, which was like a big net. He dodged every sword chi perfectly. It could be said to be a kind of art, which was very pleasing to the eyes. Lin Chi sneered. The attack of the sword chi was just the surface. The real killer move was the aura of the emperor weapon, which no cast tripod could resist. After dodging a few moves, Ling Han didn't feel annoyed anymore. He directly attacked head-on, opened the starlight screen, and took the sword chi head-on. When the starlight screen was broken, he bombarded it with his fist. At this moment, he was more barbaric, violent, and direct than Wu Qiuan. Lin Qi sneered and stretched out his hand to press at Ling Han. It seemed that this palm was ordinary, but he used the aura of the Emperor weapon and turned it into an indestructible dark blade. Ling Han immediately felt a strong chill. It was an intuition of danger. He jumped and didn't face head-on. "You can't withstand a single blow," Lin Qi said disdainfully, but in his heart, he secretly lamented that it was a pity. If this palm had hit its mark, then with the destructive power of the aura of the Emperor weapon, Ling Han would have been seriously injured, and even left with a permanent sequela. Ling Han's eyes were fixed on the aquamarine long sword. He had a feeling that all this was because of that sword. Since Lin Qi was from the Emperor clan, this should be a replica of the Emperor weapon, and its power was naturally extraordinary. If he was a little more patient, he could definitely take down Lin Qi, but he didn't want to drag the fight for so long. "I will finish you in 3 seconds, Ling Han said calmly. Lin Qi couldn't help but laugh. "What a big joke. You are at a complete disadvantage now, and I am the only one who can beat you. Finish me in 3 seconds. What a joke." But Ling Han didn't mean to joke at all. Xiao, his body moved, and he charged at Lin Qi. "You are seeking death." Lin Qi slashed with his sword, and at the same time, he was ready to attack with his left palm, waiting to see how Ling Han would respond. Of course, Ling Han charged head-on. Peng, the starlight screen collapsed, but he also broke through the sword chi and charged at Lin Qi. Lin Qi sneered, and his left hand slapped out. The aura of the Emperor weapon was hidden, and the destructive power of this palm increased infinitely. It was more refreshing to read on the phone. Chapter 3845. A Beautiful Romance. BQG 6. See Sither Chaotic Paulari's Thunder Pagoda came out. Ling Han took out a quasi-emperor weapon. If even a future emperor weapon could not block his opponent's attack, then he would admit defeat. Two powerful auras collided. This was a confrontation between two emperor-level beings. However, Ling Han charged over unscathed. The aura of chaos fell, and he looked like an invincible god of war. No matter what, how could a replica with a hint of the aura of an emperor weapon fight against the Mother Gold? What cultivation level was Ling Han at? The chaotic Paulari's Thunder Pagoda was the most powerful ritual implement of this level. Only a ritual implement made of Mother Gold could fight against it. Unfortunately, the jade water sword in Lin Qi's hand was only a replica. Ling Han charged over. With a sizzling sound, the light of thunder shot wildly toward Lin Qi. How could Lin Qi resist it? He was instantly hit head-on. The jade water sword in his hand bore the brunt of the attack and instantly exploded. In front of the Mother Gold, all ritual implements would feel inferior. This was the might of an emperor. Lin Qi looked bewildered. What was going on? This was a replica of an emperor weapon. How could it be so vulnerable? While he was in a trance, Ling Han's fist also smashed over. Peng, Lin Qi was instantly sent flying. All of this happened in a flash. No one could react. Most people were still marveling at the awesomeness of Lin Qi's ritual implement. They did not expect that in the blink of an eye, the outcome of the battle was almost decided. Sure enough, it was only 3 seconds. Could Lin Qi, who had lost his ritual implement, still have the strength to fight? Lin Qi climbed up. Under the bombardment of the power of thunder, a large part of his clothes had been torn. Fortunately, his skin had been charred black by the electricity, so he was not afraid of being exposed. His situation was not good. Wounds were all over his body. These were all caused by the chaotic Paulari's Thunder Pagoda. The fact that he was not directly killed showed his strength. He panted heavily and looked at the chaotic Paulari's Thunder Pagoda in shock. What kind of ritual implement was this? It was too terrifying. Ling Han put away the chaotic Paulari's Thunder Pagoda and said calmly, "I won't bully you." Seeing this, everyone secretly nodded. Lin Qi took out his celestial implement as soon as he came up. It was obvious that he wanted to rely on the power of the Jade Water Sword. However, Ling Han's celestial implement was obviously more powerful, but he immediately put it away and did not use it. Ling Han already possessed the demeanor of an expert, because every expert walked the path of their own strength. Which one of them would rely on external objects? Lin Chi looked at Ling Han hatefully. He had been defeated in front of so many people. This was a humiliation that he could never wash away. "You've angered me," he said coldly. Originally, he was extremely afraid of Ling Han's tower-shaped ritual implement, but now that Ling Han had put it away, he naturally had a chance of winning. He let out a great roar, and his blood and chi surged. There was also an indescribably powerful pressure, as if all the stars in the sky had to bow before him. This was because he had burned his emperor's blood. Although it was only a trace, what kind of existence was the great emperor? Even if it was extremely thin, it was still extremely terrifying. Lin Chi's eyes emitted a white light that was burning fiercely. He looked at Ling Han coldly, which was a kind of disregard on the level of life. At this moment, Lin Chi was like the great emperor when he was in the cast tripod realm. Who could resist him? Bang! Lin Chi took a step forward. It was not heavy, but everyone felt as if their hearts had been hit hard, and their faces turned pale. Theacher's aura. Ling Han finally became interested. Now, Lin Chi seemed to be possessed by the great emperor, and his combat power would have a tremendous change. The great emperor was invincible, but could he also be so at the cast tripod realm? Ling Han did not believe it. Back then, the Saint of Nine Sons had even defeated the later ancestral King Ling Tian. Therefore, even the great emperor might not be invincible throughout his life. It could only be said that after attaining the Tao, he would truly be unparalleled in the world. "Come, let's fight." Ling Han laughed and blasted towards Lin Chi. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Chi did not flinch at all. He began to exchange blows with Ling Han. All kinds of immortal skills were used at the right time, and it was too wonderful for words. However, due to the limitation of his cultivation level, Lin Chi could not use the Emperor skill. At most, he could burst out a little, but this kind of burst naturally had to be saved for the most crucial moment. If he did not use it to win in one strike, he would use it to save his life. The two of them fought, and the treasured skills collided. It was brilliant. Lin Chi is burning his emperor's blood, which is equivalent to turning into a young great emperor. His combat power is really fierce. But the problem is that Ling Han does not have emperor's blood, and he can still withstand it. SSS, to be able to fight against a young great emperor, if this guy doesn't die, he might become a sage in the future. Become a sage. This was an unattainable peak. Even among the emperor clans, how many people could reach the sage realm? But Ling Han could fight against a young great emperor. His potential was really shocking, which was why he was so highly evaluated and had the potential to become a sage. As long as Ling Han can hold on, the one who will lose will definitely be Lin Chi. Millimeter, everyone nodded. The current Lin Chi was not so powerful by himself. He was relying on burning his emperor's blood, which could only be maintained for a limited time, and the cooldown period was shockingly long. He could not do it again so soon. Therefore, as long as they fought a protracted battle, Ling Han would definitely win. Lin Chi obviously knew that, and he finally could not hold back anymore. With a shrill cry, he clasped his fingers together and formed a circle. Then, he aimed at Ling Han. Xiao, a beam of light blasted out. Instantly, everyone was blinded, and they could not see anything. This was an emperor skill, and even he had only learned one move. However, an emperor skill was an emperor skill, and it was invincible among those of the same cultivation level. Ling Han did not dare to be careless. Now, it was as if Lin Chi had been possessed by a great emperor, and he was not weaker than him. Now that he had used an emperor skill, he had to go all out. Go. He also used the demon monkey fist and blasted it out. A demon monkey with endless hostility appeared and met the beam of light. Bang! In the loud noise, a large number of symbols exploded. Light surged and shot up into the sky, turning into a huge mushroom cloud. Looking at Ling Han and Lin Chi, they were both wounded. The emperor skills had collided and destroyed each other, but both of them were still injured. Fortunately, they were not seriously injured. Without a trace of hesitation, the two of them charged at each other again. Bang, bang, bang. The battle was extremely intense, but without the explosion of emperor skills, neither of them could kill the other instantly. They were in a stalemate. However, not long after the battle, Lin Qi's momentum plummeted. His emperor's blood had been used up. There was nothing more to say. Under the powerful attack of Ling Han, Lin Qi was quickly defeated. He did not say a word and left dejectedly. It was really embarrassing. Not only had his ritual implement been destroyed, but he had even used his last resort, burning his emperor's blood, and still suffered a crushing defeat. How could he still argue? Ling Han, on the other hand, frowned slightly. This was only a member of the emperor clans, and he was not even the strongest descendant. However, after burning his emperor's blood, he was actually able to fight evenly with him. There were so many emperor clans in the world. If 2 or 3 of them joined forces, wouldn't he be in a very passive position? No, he had to become stronger. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3846. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han was overthinking things. Even the Arch clan could only burn their Arch blood a limited number of times in their lives. After the Arch blood was burned, it would slowly recover, but it would be slower and slower until there was no more Arch blood to burn. Moreover, what was Lin Qi's cultivation level? He had 6 cauldrons now. Even with the advantage of 1 cauldron, he still couldn't defeat Ling Han. What did that mean? Ling Han was stronger than young Theurches of the same level, even if it was just a little bit. If Ling Han also had 6 cauldrons, would it still be a draw if he fought with Lin Qi after burning his Arch blood? After this battle, Ling Han's position as the number 1 among the young disciples was completely established. Lin Qi had suffered a crushing defeat. So what if Gan Ping was there? He could only bear the grudge. Of course, Gan Ping wouldn't admit this, but he didn't say anything about how Ling Han couldn't be considered a hit either. However, the front door of Ling Han's residence became even more lively. The male disciples all came over to curry favor with him, while the female disciples, on the other hand, were full of tenderness. They wanted nothing more than to drug Ling Han and push him down instead. If Ling Han was a bit more promiscuous, he could be a groom every night and sleep with the beautiful disciples of the sacred ground. However, he naturally wasn't that kind of person, so he could only resist. Stunning beauties like Tan Meng and Jiang Gefei also made others envious and jealous. The following days became peaceful. Everyone made the best use of their time to cultivate while searching for the god-slaying art that the Saint of Nine Sun had hidden. This was the true reason why everyone had entered the Nine Sun sacred ground. Once they obtained the god-slaying art, they would be able to obtain the Nine Sun finger and gain control of a huge faction. In the future, they would be able to use a saint weapon to fight against others. If there was anything that happened, it was that Lin Qi took back the title of Dao Disciple, which made many people laugh their heads off. Before they knew it, everyone had been in the sacred ground for a year. At this time, many people arrived at the gate of the sacred ground, waiting for the sacred ground to open its gates again to recruit the second batch of disciples. Quick, go and see the beauties. Someone posted on the Sacred Grounds network. Peerless beauties. No matter the time, a beautiful woman would always be able to attract people's attention and excite them. Thus, many people went to watch the disciple recruitment ceremony. As a result, there was a heated discussion on the internet. There's really a beauty here. She's even more beautiful than Fairy Tan and Fairy Jie. What kind of joke is that? Fairy Tan and the others are all on the beauty rankings. Hihi, why don't you go and take a look for yourself? This aroused the curiosity of many people, and all of them went to have a look. In the end, all the people that went to have a look felt unanimously that this woman's beauty was something even Tan Meng's group of 3 couldn't compare to. Of course. Do you know who she is? Someone said disdainfully. Who? Number 9 on the beauty rankings, Song Lan. What? After learning of this stunning woman's identity, everyone was shocked, but they also felt that it was only natural. She was ranked 9th on the beauty rankings, so of course she was a peerless beauty. Hey, 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 don't have any delusions. The beauty ranked 9th on the rankings isn't someone you can touch. Can't I even think about it? Hey, do you know who accompanied Song Lan here?
Who?
Lu Qi. For a moment, everyone was silent. Who's Lu Qi? He was ranked 19th on the Star Web Cauldron forging list. One had to know that in order to get into the top 100 of the rankings, there would be a considerable difference in strength for every 10 ranks. Lu Qi was ranked 19th on the Star Web, which meant that he was much stronger than Gan Ping. It was said that he had already cultivated 8 cauldrons. The 8 cauldrons that he had cultivated himself were completely different from the 8 cauldrons that Shuizhan had cultivated temporarily by other experts. If the two were to fight, Lu Qi would probably be able to crush Shuizhan with a single slap. No way, a monster in the top 20 of the Star Web actually joined the Sacred Land? It's because Lu Qi is pursuing Song Lan. Since Song Lan is here, of course Lu Qi is here as well. There's going to be a good show to watch, someone said meaningfully. Ling Han was currently the number 1 disciple of this generation, but the situation was different now that Lu Qi was here. Would it be a battle between 2 heroes, or would Ling Han quietly leave the stage? Ling Han only smiled faintly after hearing this and didn't take it to heart. Perhaps Lu Qi was indeed stronger than him now, but he was only in the late stage of the 5 cauldrons. As long as he raised his realm, he would be able to defeat someone of the same level. Moreover, he had many trump cards, such as the 3 Trigram Aquarius Array and the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda. Any one of them could kill any cast cauldron. After a few days of the assessment, Lu Qi and Song Lan naturally entered the Sacred Land without any suspense. There were other monsters in this batch, such as Su Wenbai and Ji Yuanbai, who were all ranked in the top 100 of the Star Web. In terms of beauties, there was actually another beauty on the beauty ranking, Du Qingqing, who had also entered the Sacred Land. However, because of Song Lan's existence, she naturally paled in comparison. With the addition of this batch of disciples, the Sacred Land instantly became lively. These 2 batches of people naturally formed their own teams. The first batch thought that they were seniors and had seniority, but the ones who came later were naturally dissatisfied. They had been divided into 10 batches of disciples, so naturally, they were considered one batch. How could they become seniors a year earlier? Also, what did martial art look at? Strength. Thus, the disciples of the 2 batches naturally broke out into battle. Because the number of people was about the same, and their strength was also about the same, there was no clear winner after a few battles. In the end, it was the Law Hall that came out and forbade this kind of large-scale group battle. Otherwise, they would be expelled from the sect. Ling Han only wanted to cultivate in peace. He wasn't in the mood to compete for first or second place. He paid no attention to the outside world, and even if the large black dog tried to instigate him again and again, he completely ignored it. But sometimes, things were like this. You didn't want to stir up trouble, but trouble would come knocking on your door. Ling Han was in the midst of concocting pills when he heard the sound of knocking on his door. If it were another alchemist, after being disturbed like this, the cauldron of pills would probably be ruined. However, Ling Han was the alchemy emperor, and he had concocted the cauldron heart pill countless times. He could still multitask and control it. He asked, "What is it?" He was already slightly angry. He had already instructed that when he was concocting pills, no one was to disturb him. "Master, an unwelcome guest has come. I have clearly told him that you are in the middle of concocting pills, and cannot see him, yet he still broke the door. He even said that he would only wait for 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, he will barge in," Mingyu said in a low voice. She was slightly aggrieved, but also revealed a strong anger. Ever since Ling Han had been crowned with the title of the strongest disciple, who would dare to be so rude? Ling Han continued to concoct pills, and said, "Ignore him." "Understood." Mingyu nodded. Peng. Indeed, after a short while, a loud sound rang out. That unwelcome guest should have grown impatient from waiting, and had barged in forcefully. Cell phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3848. BQG6, CC BQG6. CC what? You want me to compensate you? Who felt a little dizzy. He had been beaten up and was riddled with wounds. Who knew how many bones in his body had been broken or even broken? Shouldn't Ling Han be the one compensating him? First of all, it's the door. I'll give you a little cheaper. Let's make it 100 stones. Ling Han began to calculate. Who immediately raised his head and looked at Ling Han. Your door is made of immortal gold, and it's worth 100 Dao stones? You're deliberately extorting money. Pa! Ling Han slapped him across the face and said coldly, do you have any objections? Yes, but he didn't dare to say it. Who lowered his head and thought to himself, no matter what Ling Han said now, he would not object anymore. In any case, once he got away, he would just ignore it. In the future, there would naturally be Lu Qi to take care of Ling Han. A mere alchemist actually dared to make an enemy out of his master. He was truly courting death. You destroyed the house too. Ling Han continued to calculate, cheaper, even if you have 900 Dao stones, round it up, let's make it 1,000. Damn it, is there such a way to round it up? Who wanted to refute, but when he saw Ling Han's fierce gaze, he obediently shut his mouth. And my furnace of pills, a little cheaper. I'll just take it as 100,000 Dao stones. Ling Han said again. Isn't your furnace of pills not bad? Who could not hold it in any longer, he naturally had to argue. Pa! Ling Han gave him a slap across the face. You charged over and made a move like that. Which alchemist wouldn't explode their cauldrons? I didn't explode because of my ability. I used my own ability to save an alchemical pill, so what does that have to do with you? What he said made sense, it was simply impossible to refute. Who actually wanted to retort, what kind of pill are you concocting? One furnace is actually worth 100,000 Dao stones. Extortion. Blatant extortion. Endure it. Once he gets away, he won't admit it. I won't bother with you about the other furniture. I'll have to trouble you to pay 101,100 Dao stones, hurry up and pay. Ling Han extended his hand. Who shook his head. Nope. Ling Han smiled. It's okay if you don't have cash. I support universe dollar transfers here. Whose face couldn't help but turn black. You're really thoughtful. I don't have that much money, he said weakly. No. Ling Han's expression instantly changed, and he stopped smiling. Peng, he threw a punch at him. Think about it carefully. Punch after punch, under the unceasing bombardment, who finally could not hold on anymore. Yes, I do. He connected to the star web and transferred money to Ling Han's account, but it was only 73,000 universe credits. I really only have this much, he said with a sad face. He was only a tripod caster, and he was Lu Qi's subordinate. How much savings could he have? Pauper Ling Han thought for a moment. It's okay. I'll ask your master for the rest. Who quickly lowered his head to hide the excitement on his face. Go ask Lu Qi for money. Ha ha ha, aren't you walking right into a trap? Go quickly. Get lost. Ling Han flew up and kicked Who away. Then, he went to the Holy Palace to apply. This room was broken, so he naturally had to change it. However, the Holy Palace directly arranged a cave abode for him. What was the difference between it and an ordinary room? There was an array in the cave abode that could absorb the energy of heaven and earth to speed up cultivation. It also had a protective function. As long as the owner didn't allow it, outsiders couldn't enter unless they had the strength of a sect master. Since there was such a good thing, why didn't they take it out earlier? Because the number of such cave abodes was limited, the Holy Palace hadn't decided who to give it to. However, since Ling Han's room was broken, they went with the flow and arranged a cave abode for him. Such generosity must have been pushed by someone behind the scenes. Ling Han immediately went to find Yang Dong to express his gratitude, but the result surprised him. It was because the one who really put in a lot of effort in this matter was Liu Sanjun. This person was extremely senior in the Holy Palace and was close to the end of his lifespan, so everyone had to give him some face. In addition, Ling Han was indeed a monster. He excelled in martial arts, alchemy, and array formations. Such a talent naturally needed to be nurtured. Therefore, the Holy Palace simply did him a favor and let Ling Han live in the cave abode first. Liu Sanjun must have been too shocked and his brain was damaged. In this old man's opinion, it should be curmudgeon Liu's love for talent, Yang Dong said seriously. Previously, when Shuizhan was defeated and killed, Liu Sanjun surprisingly didn't make things difficult for him. At that time, he had already suspected it. In addition to this matter, he was completely sure that Liu Sanjun really admired Ling Han very much. Moreover, people like Liu Sanjun were eccentric and easily went to extremes. If he hated someone, then he hated them very much. However, if he admired someone, then he also admired them very much. For example, although Yang Dong also admired Ling Han, he would never slap the table in public and stand up for Ling Han to live in a cave abode with many people. This old man was interesting. Ling Han decided to pay a visit to this powerful figure. The other party had done him such a big favor, so he should go and thank him. He said goodbye to Yang Dong and then went to see Liu Sanjun. After so long, Liu Sanjun naturally had a new Dao child, who was only 15 or 16 years old. However, when the young man saw Ling Han, his face suddenly turned pale. As he retreated, he said, "Don't kill me, don't kill me." Ling Han's face couldn't help but darken. Damn, did he really have to go that far? He did kill one of Liu Sanjuan's Dao children, but it was not to the extent that he had to fight with Liu Sanjuan's Dao children and kill them every time he saw one. "Don't worry, I won't kill you," said Ling Han. Only then did the Dao child breathe a sigh of relief, but immediately said weakly, "Will you eat me?" "Where the hell did you hear that? Am I a man-eating demon?" Ling Han sighed, "Don't worry, I don't eat people either. You didn't lie to me." The Dao child was still worried. Ling Han had an urge to beat someone up. Damn, who was it that was behind him and spreading rumors about him? When did he become a murderous demon, a man-eating monster? "No, I didn't," he said word by word. Only then did the Dao child breathe a sigh of relief and pat his chest, "Now I can rest assured." With that, he turned around and walked up the mountain. Hey, don't go," Ling Han hurriedly called out. The Dao child turned around, and his face turned pale again. "Are you still going to eat me?" "No, I have something to discuss with Elder Liu," Ling Han said. He was feeling a little frantic in his heart. These words should have been said at the first instant. "Oh, you're here to see Elder Liu, not to eat me." The Dao child was even more relieved. Ling Han waved his hand, "Go and report." He turned around and didn't look at the Dao child, afraid that he couldn't help but beat him up. "Oh." The Dao child finally turned around and went up the mountain, not changing the topic. After a while, a thought sounded in Ling Han's mind, "Come." It was Liu Sanjun. Cell phone reading is more refreshing. Chapter 3849. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han was climbing the mountain. Some elders lived in the Holy Palace, but some chose to live on the mountain for peace and quiet. Liu Sanjun was one of the latter. Ling Han came to the top of the mountain and saw a thatched cottage. It didn't take up much space, and he couldn't tell at all that this was the residence of a sect master-level elite. "What are you doing here?" Liu Sanjun walked out of the house. "Do you want to kill my Daoist boy again?" The Daoist boy from before was following behind him. When he heard this, he couldn't help but shrink his neck and hide behind Liu Sanjun. F***ck, it must be this old man who spread rumors that he was a murderous demon and a man-eating monster. Ling Han was speechless. He glanced at the Daoist boy, and he was so scared that he hurriedly retracted his head that had just popped out, as if he would die if Ling Han met his eyes. "Senior, I'm here to express my gratitude." He clasped his hands together. Liu Sanjun said coldly, "So, you scared my Daoist boy to this extent?" The Daoist boy hurriedly nodded. "It was too scary." Ling Han's face darkened. "All of this was deliberately slandered by you. Moreover, this Daoist boy was too timid." "How could that be?" "Senior, you've misunderstood." He smiled. He knew that Liu Sanjun was probably still embarrassed because Ling Han had indeed killed his Daoist boy. Even if he changed his mind out of love for talent, What about his face? Thus, he had to be cold and indifferent towards Ling Han, and act like a loaded cannon. Now that he knew this, things would be easier. Ling Han was someone who hung out with the large black dog. He had a glib tongue, and could play Tai Chi too well. With a few words of praise, a smile slowly appeared on Liu Sanjun's cold face. This scared the Daoist boy. If Liu Sanjun was bewitched by Ling Han, what would he do? Would he be steamed or braised? Ling Han and Liu Sanjun talked for a long time, and he also got to know this old man again. That's right, Liu Sanjun was indeed headstrong and self-opinionated, but he was not a bad person. Previously, he trusted Shui Bingyuan too much and always thought that the people around him would not deceive him. Finally, the old man told Ling Han that if he encountered any problems during cultivation, he could come to him immediately. If he encountered any trouble, he could also come to him. Ling Han thanked him and went down the mountain. Unless he really encountered an opponent he could not match, otherwise, Ling Han would not use this relationship. Moreover, would Liu Sanjun still appreciate him if he went to look for Liu Sanjun whenever he had trouble? Ling Han went to the new cave abode. He had grasped the core of the array formation, and in the future, only he could control this cave abode. The abode wasn't big, and it was only big enough for him and a child. Thus, it was unrealistic to expect the Empress and the others to come and share the benefits brought about by the formations here. He used the communication device to inform everyone of his new residence. Instantly, not only did the Empress and the others come, but even Tan Meng, Jiang Gefei, and the other beauties also came to congratulate him. They were full of tenderness, and the attacks of tenderness came again. Just at this moment of joy and harmony, an uninvited guest suddenly came to visit. Which one is Ling Han? It was a young man in his early 20s. He was tall and slender, but not thin or weak at all. He looked like a cheetah, and could explode with terrifying power at any time. What is it? Ling Han asked. So you are Ling Han. The young man showed a proud smile. You don't have 3 arms or 4 legs, do you? These words were filled with a strong provocation. Wu Qiyuan walked out, and stretched out his arm. Are you asking for a beating? Xiao, the young man dashed out, his speed astonishingly fast. In an instant, he had already charged in front of Wu Qiyuan, and struck out a palm strike at his left shoulder. This strike was too fast, and even Wu Qiyuan was unable to dodge it. However, this guy was born with a fondness for hand-to-hand combat, so he did not panic at all. He also threw a punch at the young man. Peng, the two of them exchanged blows, and then both retreated. Wu Qiyuan's strike was slightly heavier, but his physique was strong, so he had neutralized most of the force. Thus, his injuries should be about the same as the young man's. The young man was slightly unwilling to accept this. He had clearly taken the initiative, and attacked when Wu Qiyuan was unprepared, but in the end, both of them were injured. Only then did he retract his arrogance, and said, I am Cheng Bao, and I am here on the orders of my master. He wants you to, he pointed at Ling Han, immediately go to my master and offer a humble apology. The time limit is 1 day. If you do not comply, my master will be very angry. Trust me, you definitely do not want to see my master angry. And your master is? Yuan Tian asked, although he already had the answer in his heart. Lu Qi, Cheng Bao said proudly. As expected, it was the guy ranked 19th on the star web. All right, that's all I have to say. Take care. Cheng Bao laughed loudly, and then swaggered off. Arrogant, truly arrogant. Ling Han. Everyone looked towards Ling Han. The opponent this time was too strong. He was ranked 19th on the star web, and it was said that he had already formed 8 celestial cauldrons. This kind of strength could crush Shui Zhon by many times, and he was much stronger than Lin Qi. How could Ling Han resist? It's fine. We'll deal with it when it comes. Ling Han smiled, and everyone felt relieved. Why don't we make a sneaky move tonight and cripple that brat? The large black dog suggested. Everyone's expression darkened. What kind of stupid idea was this? Did he really think that the great elites of the Holy Land were all useless? However, this matter ended in an unexpected way. Song Lan appeared and interceded with Lu Qi on behalf of Ling Han. Since the beauty he liked had appeared, Lu Qi naturally had to give her face, and said that this matter was temporarily over. After all, wasn't Lu Qi's face still important? As for how long this temporary situation would last, it would depend on Lu Qi's mood. Ling Han also felt that it was strange. He clearly didn't know this beauty Song Lan, so why would she intercede for him? However, Song Lan seemed to have forgotten about this matter, and only casually persuaded him, not taking it to heart at all. For the time being, everything returned to normal. Everyone was searching for the whereabouts of the god-slaying art, but tens of millions of years had passed, and no one had found it. How could they find it so easily now? However, no one gave up, because it was very likely that the Nine-Sun Saint was the strongest saint in history. His nine-sun finger was unparalleled, and there were few who could match him. How powerful would the god-slaying art that the Nine-Sun Saint had painstakingly researched in his later years be? Even if it was only a legend, everyone was still searching tirelessly, unwilling to give up. Ling Han, an ancient cave abode of a spirit transformation true lord, has been discovered recently. Do you want to go and explore it? Yuan Tian came to find him. Oh. Ling Han was slightly puzzled, and asked, "Why are you interested?" It wasn't that he was arrogant, but the celestial techniques that they had obtained in the Holy Land were at least at the level of a spirit transformation true lord. There was absolutely no need for them to explore the cave abode of a spirit transformation true lord, right? It was more refreshing to read on one's phone. Chapter 3850. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC. A normal spirit transformation true lord's abode is obviously not worth exploring, but this one is different. Yuan Tian shook his head. Because this spirit transformation true lord is also a great alchemist, high-level earth grade. Ling Han finally gave an O, revealing an interested expression. What, are you tempted? Yuan Tian smiled. Yes, indeed. Ling Han nodded. What he was interested in was obviously not the pill, but the pill recipe. Even if he was willing to spend money, it was impossible to buy all the pill recipes on the Starweb, because some pills were not difficult to refine, but the demand was great, so pill recipes became treasures that would never be leaked. This was profit. Thus, if Ling Han wanted more pill recipes, finding the abode of an ancient alchemist like this should be a very good way out. That spirit transformation true lord is called Sun Quan, and it's been almost 3,000 years since he passed, Yuan Tian said. Ari, it's been too long, most of the pills have probably deteriorated and can't be used anymore. Where did you get this information? Ling Han asked. The Starweb, there are people who specialize in selling this kind of information, Yuan Tian said. Yuan Tian said, we have to hurry up. If we're late, then we won't be able to get anything. Okay. Ling Han nodded. Encountering this kind of thing, it was time to show friendship. Yuan Tian went to call Wu Qiuan, and after thinking, called Huang Lingyun and Mu Long as well. Because the Empress, the big black dog, and the others were at the crucial stage of forging the cauldron, Ling Han did not call them. The group of 5 set off, heading towards Sun Quan's ancient abode. This Sun Quan was actually quite famous. Although he was only a high-level earth-grade alchemist, he had grasped a few pill recipes that had long been lost in the world. Thus, the alchemical pills that he concocted were very popular. No matter where he went, he would be treated as a distinguished guest. However, he had never accepted a disciple in his life. Thus, after his death, those pill recipes were once again lost in the world. If they could find those lost pill recipes, they would naturally make a lot of money. They naturally did not think of using pill recipes to make money, because Ling Han knew how to refine pills, so they naturally hid the pill recipes to maximize their profits. Of course, the prerequisite was that they could obtain the pill recipe. Information about Sun Quangu's cave abode had already been sold on the Starweb. Therefore, there should be quite a number of people who would go there to try their luck. There might even be Life Core Realm and True Self Realm experts. Therefore, whether or not Ling Han's group would be able to gain anything was another matter. Therefore, time was very precious now. This ancient cave abode wasn't on the 9 Sun Star, but on a celestial body that wasn't too far away. Of course, this not far was in terms of interstellar units. If he were to fly there with his physical body, it would take at least a few decades. Fortunately, there was a teleportation array that could reach there directly. After the 5 of them paid the Tao stones, with a flash of light, they appeared on another planet. This celestial body was completely dark blue. It was not as wide as the sea, but there was a type of dark blue plant growing everywhere, covering the entire celestial body. Therefore, if one looked at it from the stars, this celestial body would appear to be the color of the sea. As soon as they stepped out of the teleportation array, they immediately discovered the bustling scene. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The teleportation array was constantly glowing. Almost every moment, there were people coming over. In the end, in order to prevent the teleportation array from being overused and broken, the person in charge here had no choice but to shut down the teleportation array so that the array base could rest for a while. Hiss, these people should all be here for Sun Quangu's cave abode. Ling Han opened his eye technique to take a look, and his heart couldn't help but shudder. There was no lack of life core realm experts among them. Once he encountered such a competitor, unless he set up the 3 trigram Aquarius array in advance, Ling Han would have to use the Heaven Dao Flame in the chaotic extreme Thunder Tower. Let's go. The 5 of them hurried on their way. With their speed, they only took half a day to arrive at Sun Quangu's cave abode. This place was hidden in a mountain. It was originally protected by an array, but Sun Quangu had been cultivating for 3,000 years, and the power of heaven and earth was slowly changing. Therefore, the array gradually lost its effect, allowing this ancient cave abode to appear in front of everyone. One could clearly see the 2 words Sun Residence written on the door of the cave abode. Combined with the information that Sun Quangu had indeed lived on this celestial body in his later years, there was a basis to confirm that this was Sun Quangu's cave abode. However, no one entered at the moment. This was because the array protecting Sun Quangu was divided into 2 parts. One part was a camouflage array, which had already lost its effect. The other part was a defensive array. Once someone intruded, it would immediately launch an attack. It was extremely swift and fierce, and even life core realm experts wouldn't be able to withstand it. Currently, no true self-realm experts had arrived, so there was no way to forcefully break the array. They could only invite an array master. Ling Han, you're an array master, right? Yuan Tian asked. Ling Han knew what he meant and nodded. I'll break the array. He walked around the mountain, and very soon, he had an idea. How is it? Seeing him return, the 4 of them asked. Follow me. Ling Han was just about to start breaking the array, but just as he inserted the first array foundation, someone flew over and said sternly, What are you doing? What are you doing? Isn't it obvious? Yuan Tian snorted and said, Of course we're breaking the array. What else can we do? No. That person was very rude and unreasonable. The array master we invited hasn't arrived yet, you're not allowed to break the array. F***ck, what kind of reason is that? Ling Han and the others were all furious. You guys are too overbearing. Yuanzhong, what's going on? A middle-aged man walked over. The person from before hurriedly bowed and said, Ninth uncle, they want to break the array. Oh. The middle-aged man swept his gaze over. Our cow family arrived first, so we'll be the first to break the array. You guys don't have any objections, right? Of course they didn't have any objections. Wu Yuan was furious and wanted to rush out to fight. His brain was the simplest, and he was too lazy to think too much. There was only one word for him, fight. Ling Han pulled him back and said calmly, Of course not. Hearing Ling Han say that, Yuan Tian and the others all shut their mouths. That's good. The middle-aged man nodded and then asked casually, You guys are from the 9 Sun Sacred Ground, right? Yes, Ling Han said again. Go. The middle-aged man waved his hand. Ling Han and the others retreated. F***ck, I'm so pissed off. This cow family is too unreasonable. Yuan Tian couldn't help but curse. Ling Han shook his head. That person just now already wanted to kill us, but he guessed that we might be from the 9 Sun Sacred Ground and have devices on us that can connect to the Sacred Ground's network at any time. That's why he confirmed it and gave up on the idea. So ruthless. Huang Lingyun was shocked. The life core realm. It's indeed possible to kill us instantly, Ling Han said slowly. This was also the reason why he retreated. Otherwise, he would have to use the heavenly Dao fire. Yuan Tian and the others were all afraid. Although they might all become sect masters in the future, any life core realm cultivator could easily take their lives now. Just now, they had gone one round in front of the gates of hell. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3852. A Good Romance. BQG 6. CC 5 cast cauldrons fighting against threefold elixirs. Under normal circumstances, this would be a joke. There was no need for threefold elixirs. Just one life core realm warrior could instantly destroy all 5 cast cauldrons, or even 50 or 500 cast cauldrons. However, the current situation was special. The threefold elixirs were seriously injured, and they only had 1% or less of their original strength left. This was different. Even so, there were still 2 people who had the upper hand in the threefold elixirs. Other than Ling Han, who could still resist, the other 2 groups were all life core realm warriors who had the upper hand. Fortunately, Yuan Tian and the others could still hold on for the time being. A life core was, after all, a life core. Even if it was a dragon swimming in shallow waters, it was still incomparably fierce. Ling Han knew that he had to break the current situation. He shouted loudly and activated the demon monkey fist. Wang, a terrifying aura circulated. He was like a young great emperor, with a kind of supreme elegance. What? His opponent turned pale with fright. It was just a cast cauldron. How could it make him feel so weak and invincible? Boom. At this moment, Ling Han had already punched out. Endless energy condensed on his fist and exploded at a single point. The middle-aged man in green wanted to dodge, but Ling Han's baleful aura hit him, causing him to be slightly stifled. He instantly missed the best opportunity to dodge. He had no choice but to return the attack. Bang! In the collision, the life core realm warrior was instantly sent flying. His whole body spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, what was shocking was that he actually did not die. Damn, a life core realm warrior was so hard to kill. Ling Han suppressed the boiling emotions in his chest, and once again charged over. The other 2 people from the Cow clan, Frost Dragon, cried out in alarm. They hurriedly wanted to rush over to help, but they were firmly entangled by Wu Qiuan and Yuan Tian. However, they also paid a huge price for this, and the injuries on their bodies worsened. This crazy life core realm warrior was too terrifying. On the other side, Ling Han had already caught up with the green-robed man. He punched out again, and the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda also slashed out thunderbolts. He wanted to kill this person. Bang bang bang, the green-robed man parried, but he was hit by the demon monkey fist. This was an emperor technique, how could he not be injured? Moreover, he was bombarded by Ling Han so fiercely. Naturally, he was unable to endure it. Every time he received a punch, he would spit out a mouthful of blood, and there were even fragments of his internal organs. After receiving more than 100 punches, he finally reached the point of exhaustion. With a bang, his whole body suddenly exploded. Ling Han was expressionless. He turned around and stared at the remaining 2 life core cultivators. The 2 men from the Cow family felt their hair stand on end when they saw Ling Han's gaze. A life core stage clansman had already been brutally beaten to death by Ling Han. How could they be spared? No, they had to break out of the encirclement immediately. Their injuries were too severe, and they couldn't even suppress a few cast tripod realm martial artists. But as long as they could stabilize their injuries and didn't need to fully recover, killing cast tripod realm martial artists would be a piece of cake. Go. The 2 of them were about to break out of the encirclement, but Wu Yuan and the other 3 also began to fight with their lives on the line. Ling Han let out a long roar and charged back. The 2 men from the Cow family were extremely regretful. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have cared if they were from the 9 Sun sacred ground and would have killed them the moment they encountered them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have such bad luck. It was obvious that they didn't have any intention to reflect on their actions. Ling Han executed the 3 styles of the war god again. This was a sacred art. Even though it wasn't the most exquisite ultimate move, after 3 consecutive moves, the life core stage clansman from the cow family was naturally severely injured, and his combat strength dropped by a few notches. Right now, it was Ling Han fighting alone again, while Wu Yuan, Yuan Tian, and the other 2 life core stage clansmen from the cow family were fighting together. The scales of victory were completely tilted towards Ling Han's side. Be it Ling Han or Wu Yuan and the other 3 life core stage clansmen, they all had the upper hand. Come, let's see who can finish the battle first, Ling Han said. All right. Wu Yuan and the other 3 life core stage clansmen responded. Could it be that the 4 of them were still inferior to Ling Han? Kill, kill, kill. The 2 men from the cow family were bursting with anger. They were at the life core stage, but they were actually reduced to props for the cast tripod realm. How could they endure this? The 2 life core stage clansmen released their own aura presence to suppress Jiangyi on the mental aspect. As expected, Wu Yuan and the other 3 life core stage clansmen were instantly affected, and their attacks were obviously much weaker. However, Ling Han wasn't affected at all, and he was still attacking ferociously. His baleful aura was even able to slightly affect the life core stage clansmen. The 2 life core stage clansmen gritted their teeth. Was there really no other way? The crucial point was that they had already exhausted all their treasures and methods when they were fighting their way out of the array. Even if they wanted to risk their lives, they didn't have any trump cards to reveal. Were they really going to die in the hands of a few cast tripod realm experts? They were unwilling. Let's go all out. The 2 life core stage experts roared with rage and used all their strength to break through. They completely ignored the attacks and focused on breaking through. Ah! Ling Han's opponent let out a miserable cry and fell to the ground with a bang. Ling Han's strength wasn't suppressed by the aura presence of the life core stage, and he actually dared to ignore Ling Han's attack. Wasn't he courting death? However, the other person from the cow family finally killed his way out. He turned back to look at his 2 companions on the ground and then swept his gaze across Ling Han and the other 4 life core stage clansmen. He remembered all 5 of them, and once his injuries were healed, he would definitely kill his way back and take their lives. He then turned his head and was about to use all his strength to run. But in an instant, he broke out in cold sweat like rain. Because in front of him, there was actually a person standing. Ling Han. How was this possible? How could this guy's speed be so fast? Ling Han didn't make a sound and just punched out violently. That life core stage clansman hurriedly parried. Bang! He only received 1 punch, but he was forced to retreat repeatedly. This person was the one who fought with Ling Han at the beginning. He had already been severely injured by the primal chaos Paulari's Thunder Pagoda, and now that he was fighting with Ling Han head-on, how could he possibly be a match for him? After a dozen consecutive punches, he was forcefully blown apart. Ha ha, Ling Han, we won. Yuan Tian laughed and pointed at the 2nd life core stage clansman from the cow family, who had already been killed by the 4 of them. He had been knocked down by Ling Han, and Yuan Tian and the other 3 had taken the opportunity to attack and take his life. Ling Han smiled. Naturally, he would not say anything about their actions of stealing an opportunity. Using their cauldron forging stage cultivation to face off against life core stage clansmen, he was extremely happy that none of the 4 of them had fallen behind. Naturally, the friendship between them deepened a notch. Come, let's plunder. They had searched the corpses of the 3 life core stage clansmen, but the treasures on their bodies had all been used up in the array formation. Perhaps they still had some savings, but they were definitely on the star web. Now, I'm starting to hate the star web. Yuan Tian sighed. I feel the same. The others also nodded. They had painstakingly killed 3 life core stage clansmen, but their harvest was only a few Dao stones. How could this not make them depressed? Furthermore, apart from Ling Han, Wu Qiyuan and the other 3 had all suffered serious injuries. Let's recover first, and then we'll enter the cave abode, Ling Han said. Wu Qiyuan and the other 3 did not try to be brave. They took the healing medicinal pills and began to recover. Half a day later, they leaped up one by one. Although they had not recovered to their peak condition, their movements were no longer affected. They had to hurry, or else more and more people would come. Ling Han was just about to start breaking the array formation. Xiao, several figures streaked across the sky. More people had come. Reading on the phone was more refreshing. Chapter 3853. A Good Romance. BQG 6. Ling Han stopped, only to see that those figures had directly descended, and were not far from them. There were a total of 5 people, 3 men and 2 women, and Ling Han's eyes were first attracted by a man. It wasn't that he was shockingly handsome, but that his aura was too strong. He was obviously a cast cauldron, but when he stood there, he was like a black hole, attracting all eyes and attention. He was indeed quite handsome, with a dignified appearance and sharp facial features. His hair was black and shiny, as if every strand was a work of art that was exquisitely carved. Then, Ling Han's eyes turned to a woman. Beautiful, stunningly beautiful. Ling Han had to admit that even the Empress and Hu Niu couldn't gain the upper hand in front of her. However, he soon had another feeling: emptiness. This woman was obviously standing there, but it was like air, making it impossible to lock onto her. If she wasn't born with a divine body, then she cultivated some special cultivation technique. These people were, when Ling Han swept his eyes over the 2 men, he immediately determined the identity of these people. Lu Qi, Song Lan. Because he saw Cha Hu and Cheng Bao, needless to say, the man surrounded by them must be Lu Qi, and who could make Lu Qi's companion be? Song Lan, an absolute beauty ranked 9th on the absolute beauty ranking. Indeed, her beauty was unparalleled and wonderful. Lu Qi swept a glance over Ling Han, but did not say anything. However, Cheng Bao immediately stepped out and shouted, "Ling Han, you've seen the master, why haven't you paid your respects?" This was an absolute condescension, and even a lackey was so arrogant. Ling Han smiled and strode forward. Everyone thought that Ling Han admitted defeat. After all, Lu Qi was a super expert ranked 19th on the star web, and in theory, there were only 18 people who could defeat him in the cast tripod realm. With the vastness of the universe, no one would think that it was inappropriate even if he was 100 times more arrogant. Although Wu Qiyuan, Yuan Tian, and the other 2 felt extremely unhappy, they knew that this was Ling Han's best choice. If they didn't lower their heads now, they would only be asking for trouble. Lu Qi said arrogantly with a hint of disdain on the corner of his mouth. "HMPH, what number 1? You have no backbone at all." Ling Han had already arrived. He suddenly stretched out his hand, and with an extremely fast speed, he grabbed Song Lan's slender jade-like hand. This was really too sudden. There was absolutely no one who would have thought that Ling Han would actually be so bold. Even Song Lan herself was dumbfounded. A pair of beautiful eyes looked towards Ling Han, and there was 70% surprise and 30% shyness. But very soon, her beautiful face flushed red, and she hurriedly tried to withdraw her hand. How could Ling Han be willing to let go? "Many thanks to Miss Song for speaking up for me," he said. "I really can't thank you enough. Miss Song is truly worthy of being called the most beautiful woman in the world. You're so beautiful that you're practically bubbling." In short, he grabbed Song Lan's hand to express his gratitude. As one of the top 10 beauties, Song Lan was naturally a smooth and slick public figure. She had seen all kinds of things in the world. But which man would be so daring as to grab her jade-like hand in public? How thick-skinned was he? She tried to pull back, but Ling Han was also holding her hand tightly. Song Lan couldn't pull back at all. But in order to maintain the demeanor of a goddess and fairy, she couldn't get angry. After all, Ling Han was expressing his gratitude to her. She really wanted to use a celestial spell to kill Ling Han. But she had to maintain a smile on her face, which made her extremely depressed. But the person who was the most furious here was definitely Lu Qi. Although he had been pursuing Song Lan, he had never had any physical contact with her. He looked at Song Lan's jade-like hand falling into Ling Han's claws. His heart was in turmoil. His face first turned green, then black, and finally, it turned into a heaven-burning murderous intent. "You're courting death," he said word by word. His voice was so cold that it made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Wu Qiyuan and the other 3 were also stunned. They thought that Ling Han was going to admit defeat. But this guy was really daring. Not only did he not admit defeat, he even slapped Lu Qi. No, this was 100 times worse than a slap. But Lu Qi was clearly enraged, and Song Lan wouldn't speak up for Ling Han. So how could Ling Han resolve Lu Qi's anger? Ling Han finally pulled back his hand. TSK, it felt so good. No wonder she was the 9th beauty in the universe. He coughed, looked at Lu Qi, and said seriously, "Who are you again?" Lu Qi had already suffered 10,000 points of damage, and this was definitely a critical hit. Die. He attacked and blasted at Ling Han. Ling Han clenched his fist and counterattacked. Peng, he instantly felt an irresistible force surge over and send him flying. Then, it was as if every bone in his body was about to break, and a few of his muscles had already been torn apart, with fresh blood seeping out. As expected of an 8 cauldron, it crushed him by 3 small realms. This was not a fake like Shuezhan, but obtained through hard work and bitter cultivation. It required great comprehension, great wisdom, and great perseverance. Therefore, an 8 cauldron cultivator's combat ability far surpassed that of a beast of the same level. Take Ling Han for example. He was only a 5 cauldron cultivator, but he could easily slaughter an 8 cauldron cultivator. If Lu Qi's strength was real, it should be equivalent to a 9 cauldron cultivator, or even the peak of 9 cauldron cultivator. Unbeatable. Lu Qi laughed coldly and attacked again. Ling Han used his eye technique and found an opening in his opponent's defense, dodging the attack. Then, he opened his mouth, and the gunmetal sword shot out toward Lu Qi. Lu Qi did not dare to ignore it. He struck out with his palm. Bang, the golden sword was shattered, but a wound appeared on his palm, and fresh blood seeped out. Seeing this scene, Cheng Bao and Cha, who were both shocked. There was actually someone in the cast tripod realm who could injure their master. He wasn't one of the top 18 in the Star Web, but rather an unknown minor character. In the Star Web, Ling Han was indeed a nobody. It was too unbelievable. Lu Qi raised his hand to take a look, and the corner of his mouth revealed a smile. In the same age group, you are the first person to truly injure me. He might have lost in the Star Web ranking tournament, but that was a battle between psychokinesis bodies, and it was impossible for his physical body to be injured. Ling Han smiled faintly. Then you have to get used to it. There will be plenty of opportunities for you to get beaten up in the future. Lu Qi's face darkened. He seemed to be praising Ling Han, but in fact, he was proclaiming his own strength. Insolent words. You don't know what's good for you. He attacked again. This time, he used some kind of immortal art. As he opened and closed his palms, there was an immeasurable amount of immortal light, and every ray of it had boundless power. Ling Han's starlight screen took the hit head-on, and it was instantly shattered. It was not that the starlight screen was not powerful enough, but that it was at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation level. After all, Ling Han was only at the 5 cauldron realm. He used so close, yet worlds apart, and his figure was fleeting. Even Lu Qi could not catch him. Interesting, Lu Qi said coldly. 1,000 silk net. He shouted softly, and the immeasurable amount of immortal light instantly intertwined and turned into a huge net. It was more refreshing to read on a mobile phone. Chapter 3854. A Good Romance. BQG 6. This net surrounded them, sealing off all possible escape routes. Lu Qi also charged over, his eyes sharp and his aura terrifying. His killing intent had been aroused, and he wanted to blast Ling Han into pieces. How dare you touch the woman he likes? Only death awaited him. No one could save this bastard. Ling Han sighed. There was a difference of 3 minor realms, and Lu Qi was a genius that was ranked 19th on the Star Web. His combat strength was truly too strong. Wang, the murderous aura blasted out. So what if Lu Qi was a genius? His mind was instantly seized, and he fell into a temporary state of confusion. Ling Han retreated until the net disappeared due to the exhaustion of energy. Lu Qi woke up, and her expression turned serious. I didn't expect you to have a telekinesis artifact. There were telekinesis artifacts like the heavenly rune jade that could cause physical damage, but there were also artifacts that could directly affect one's divine soul and even destroy one's consciousness. He absolutely did not believe that Ling Han had used some kind of secret technique to affect him, because he believed that with the strength of his divine sense, no one in the same realm could break it. Ling Han didn't try to defend himself. It was up to Lu Qi what he thought. Firstly, it was meaningless. Secondly, would someone as arrogant as Lu Qi believe him? He activated so close, yet worlds apart, and counterattacked. Lu Qi was calm and composed. His advantage was too obvious. His palms struck out casually, and he was invincible. However, as soon as Ling Han's murderous aura rushed out, he would be hit no matter what. Although it was only for a short moment, it completely messed up his attack rhythm, and he was unable to turn his advantage into victory. After dozens of moves, Lu Qi felt like he couldn't hold it anymore. He had 8 cauldrons, while Ling Han only had 5 cauldrons. However, he still could not take down Ling Han. One had to know that a cauldron's difference in cultivation meant that one's strength should be completely suppressed. This was a situation that he could not accept. If news of this got out, he would definitely be disgraced, and people would question if he was ranked 19th in the star web. He roared in fury. Hong, the sound of thunder rang out from within his body, and his entire body suddenly grew infinitely larger. In the blink of an eye, he transformed from an ordinary person into a mountainous giant. Boom! His palm pressed down, truly covering the sky with one hand. How can you block an attack like that? Peng! The palm slammed down, and the entire ground trembled as if an earthquake had occurred. Lu Qi shook his body and returned to his normal size. This was not a secret technique, but a divine ability that he had mastered. The Herculean diamond body was one of the strongest innate divine bodies. With this attack, Ling Han should be blasted into dregs. However, a pagoda floated up and down, emitting streams of chaotic qi. One could vaguely see a person standing proudly inside. Ling Han. Lu Qi's expression changed. Even this didn't kill Ling Han. One had to know that the Herculean Vajra body was too powerful. It was so powerful that even he found it difficult to control it. He could only use it 2 to 3 times in a short period of time. However, looking at Ling Han's appearance, he was clearly not injured at all. To hell with it, he quickly fixed his eyes on the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda. His intuition made him believe that the reason Ling Han was able to dodge his explosive attack was entirely because of this treasure. The more he looked, the more he realized that this treasure was extraordinary. It made him covet it intensely and want to take it for himself. He activated his innate divine body again, and his body enlarged rapidly. He then grabbed at Ling Han with his palm. What did having a big body mean? Great strength. For example, ants. Even if they were the strongest ants in the colony, if they met a human, even if it was just a child, they could easily crush the strongest ant. Therefore, after Lu Qi activated his innate divine body, his strength skyrocketed and was comparable to the early stage of the life core realm. He grabbed Ling Han, but the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda emitted chaotic qi, which formed a powerful defense that protected Ling Han within. Break! Lu Qi roared, his voice loud and clear like thunder. He clenched his right hand tightly, wanting to crush the chaotic qi and then crush Ling Han. This was not impossible. Although the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda was a future emperor weapon and could be said to be the strongest artifact in the cast tripod realm, it was only limited to the cast tripod realm. The key was that Lu Qi was now at the life core realm, although he could only match the weakest life core realm. A life core realm against a cast tripod realm, this was a crushing defeat. Therefore, the chaotic qi rapidly broke. Although the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda was still falling continuously, it could not compare to the speed of destruction. At this moment, the light of thunder boiled. Ah! Lu Qi let out a painful groan and quickly let go. His current strength was comparable to the life core realm, but it did not mean that his defense was the same. The primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda's counterattack was too fierce. Xiao, Ling Han, and the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda fell together, but in the next moment, he was already flying on his artifact, launching a counterattack against Lu Qi. The great overarching heaven treasured skill was activated, dazzling brilliance, and a large number of symbols flowed. After Lu Qi barely withstood a few moves, his figure shrunk. He could not maintain this state for a long time. He frowned. The power of this artifact was beyond his expectations. It could actually barely match the life core realm. Damn it, if only his innate divine body could be activated for a while longer. Ling Han's heart also palpitated. This Lu Qi was really powerful. After activating his innate divine body, he could actually display the battle prowess of the life core realm. He almost broke through the defense of the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda and almost forced out his heavenly Dao fire. This top-notch innate divine body was too terrifying. That was what he thought, but he still attacked without hesitation. He activated the great overarching heaven treasured skill and continued to attack wildly. He had just used the 3 styles of the war god and the demon monkey fist, and it would still take a long time before he could activate them again. Therefore, he could only use the great treasure heaven treasured skill. Lu Qi met him head-on. He also frequently used his techniques, wanting to take down Ling Han. Unfortunately, his attacks could only barely break through the chaotic qi. Not to mention the endless chaotic qi falling from the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda, there was also a layer of starlight protection inside. It was simply wishful thinking to want to hurt Ling Han. After activating the primal chaos extreme thunder pagoda, those who wanted to pose a threat to Ling Han had to be those monsters ranked in the top 10 of the star web and had cultivated the 9 cauldrons. Fight, fight, fight. Ling Han only needed to attack and did not need to defend. This naturally gave him an advantage. After a few hundred moves, Lu Qi suddenly seemed to be unable to hold on. He let out an angry roar and retreated. He could not fight anymore. Otherwise, he would only be defeated. If you have the ability, then fight with me after taking away your treasured artifacts, he provoked. Ling Han smiled faintly. All right, if you destroy your 3 celestial cauldrons, I won't use my artifact. Go. Lu Qi was so angry that his nose almost became crooked. It was not easy for him to cultivate to the 8 cauldrons. Even a genius like him could not guarantee that he could reach the height of the 8 cauldrons again. This was because from the 6 cauldrons onwards, every cauldron required talent, luck, and opportunity. We are all disciples of the same sect. We will see each other frequently. Let's enter the cave abode first, Song Lan advised. She glanced at Ling Han with a frosty gaze. Reading on the phone is more refreshing. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.